Hello there.
Hello there.
I'm Jake,
I'm Michael.
and this is the Imposter Syndrome podcast. Let's get her done. Yeah. I love it. Today we have something special for you.
Yes.
For the month of May, we're going to do this thing that we're calling the story so far, where we kind of dissect a series in our convoluted way.
Yeah.
And we're going to do it in parts. And the first story we're doing is My Hero Academia.
I can't actually use you say run, so I'm just gonna sing it myself.
Yeah, so I'm excited. It's going to be a fun roller coaster ride.
Yes.
So we're going to try to keep it concise and clear. This is part 1. We're not sure how many parts it's going to be entirely, I suppose. I mean, obviously the story is not done, but we'll be, taking it all the way up to present. For the first 2 episodes, primarily it's going to be anime content.
Yeah.
And then it's definitely going to, fly off into the manga after that because it's way farther in advance. So just be warned about that. If you don't want to be spoiled, you can enjoy the first 2 parts for sure. But, once we get into manga content, we'll let you know. And if you want to click off, we understand.
Yeah.
So I want to prefix the story. So if anyone doesn't know about what My Hero Academia is about, primarily it's about this kid named Deku, who you'll see in the middle with the green hair. And they live in a world of quirks. So essentially people have abilities that they're born with, either based off their parents or some type of evolutionary trait, and it gives them certain abilities, but they're quirky because they usually have some type of drawback. Like, for an example, one dude has a laser beam that shoots out of his stomach, but if he does it too often, he gets cramps.
Yeah.
And has to poop. So that's just like an example of the quirkiness of the abilities in this world. So in the beginning, there was a person called the Mother of Quirks. So she came to be known this after her death. She was the mother of Chikara Yotsubashi, also known as Destro, who we'll get into at a later time.
Oh, okay.
Destro was the founder and former commander of the Meta Liberation Army. Keep in mind that that'll also be referenced in future parts.
Keep this in your notes.
Yeah, exactly. She got this title because she was the first person to use the word quirk to describe meta abilities. Now, Destro's mother lived in an era of chaos where quirks were feared and quirk users were hated. She gave birth to Destro, who, having a quirk, began to be discriminated against and despised. When her son Chikara was born, she had to see how he was marginalized and scorned because he was born with power. She spoke out against the discrimination by claiming that his power didn't make the kid a monster. His power was simply one of his quirks. She begged people to change, to make a world where her child and others with powers have the same rights and considerations as everyone else. Her words fell on deaf ears, and she was murdered by an anti-quirk faction. Over time, the government co-opted her words when they brought order back to the world, and quirks were accepted. Therefore, the woman became known as the Mother of Quirks. However, the acceptance of the quirk was accompanied by quirk regulations that restricted their use. Chikara Yotsubashi, the son of the Mother of Quirks, felt that the government had stolen the words of his mother without understanding what she truly wanted, and rebelled against the regulations. He went on to find the Meta Liberation Army, again prefix that'll be mentioned at a later time, under the name Destro in order to defend his mother's wishes. All right, so off rip, you can kind of see that there was some discrimination in the beginning of this evolutionary time.
Yep.
And, within, like in today's world, pretty much you see activists and like different people calling for change of human rights. So it seems kind of similar in that vein.
Yeah.
And it was somewhat successful, but like today's world, everyone has their own opinions on what that may be,
Yeah, so then eventually, as time went on, quirks became more and more commonplace.
frequent and accepted at the time.
Yeah.
But that's also due to another character named All for One.
Dun, 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 dun.
So I want to prefix All for One ever so slightly, just because in this era, he's kind of ancient and the main villain of this story, you'll see as time goes on.
Yeah.
And during this time, All for One had the ability to give and take quirks from people.
Yeah.
So he's kind of manipulated the world in a sense in his domain, because for people who want quirks, he's given them to them, but with a price.
Yeah.
And for those who don't want their quirks, he's removed them, but for a price. So he's kind of manipulated behind the scenes.
He's very much like a mob boss mentality.
Yeah, very mafia-esque, very like, if you've seen the Batman recently, you know that like Falcone ran the city. Yeah. It's kind of similar, like behind the scenes.
I do you a favor, you do me a favor.
Yeah, it's very similar to that. All for One also had a brother. And All for One's brother had no quirk. He was born quirkless.
Yes.
So All for One...
My God damn it.
What?
This fucking chainsaw's in the background.
Oh my God, I know.
I really hope you can't hear that.
We're not murdering or anything. It's just
Chainsaw Man's happening off screen.
Yeah. So just ignore that if you can hear it. But All for One he doesn't have love. He's pretty much an empty vessel of hatred and evil.
Yeah.
But he did have love for his brother, and he wanted his brother to join him in his quest for dominance.
Yeah.
But his brother refused. So All for One gave him a quirk. It was a stockpile quirk. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And basically that means that it can stock up power and etc. with throughout years or experience or vice versa. And what All for One didn't realize is that his brother actually did have a quirk. His quirk was that he can pass on his quirk to others.
Yes.
So the stockpile quirk and the quirk of passing on fused. His brother rebelled against All for One and became known as One for All.
Yeah.
Which leads us to present day, where we have the hero called All Might.
Yes.
So the story takes place with this kid named Deku, or Midoriya Izuku is his full name.
Yeah.
And he's a quirkless kid in a world full of people who have quirks, and his dream is to become a hero. Yeah. So because quirks are accepted in society, there has now become this trope or this position of being an actual superhero and fighting crime, but it's like licensed by like the government and by your cities, and you have to have paperwork and regulations and different things to actually be a part of that.
And quirks have become so commonplace that being quirkless actually is more of a minority than...
It's actually kind of discriminated against that you're quirkless now. So it's kind of come full circle and,
right
around, or a 180 rather. So at this point, Deku has dreams of being a hero. He idolizes the number one hero named All Might,
right?
Who is this guy who has like a bunch of USA type moves. They're like Detroit Smash.
I'm here,
Yeah, like he's very American because he did an internship in America.
Yeah,
he's like everyone's favorite hero, and he's considered the symbol of peace. Pretty much, he keeps order by himself. He's so strong,
right?
So every child in Deku's area of age is kind of obsessed and wants to be like All Might. Right. He's a symbol of peace. Yeah. So in that vein, he comes into this dilemma of the fact that can he be a hero while being quirkless?
Yes.
And everyone pretty much tells him no.
Yeah.
For the most part. And he gets bullied a lot.
Yeah.
He's kind of timid and like a nerdy kid, and he writes like all these notes about heroes. He's like obsessed with heroes. He loves them. He's a geek.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Right.
And he wants nothing more to be that. So what you can see on the screen here, it's his mother and Deku crying as he's a child when he starts to realize that his aspirations of being a hero are faulty. It seems like the only one who says he can to some extent is his mom, but even she's like consoling him and saying that she's sorry that he wasn't born special to be, it's kind of sad, in that way.
Yeah.
I want to mention, and this is a good place to introduce another character, Bakugo. So Bakugo is a classmate of Deku who gave him the name Deku. Now Deku means loser, so it's not an endearing term,
Right.
in the sense. And he's constantly bullying him because Bakugo has a quirk. What is his quirk's actual name? Explosion. So basically, he sweats
Nitroglycerin.
Yeah, he sweats basically gas essentially, and he can use it to make explosions. So basically, hence the word explosion for his quirk name. And he's pretty special, like in the sense that he's skilled. He's number one in his middle school. Yeah. Everybody thinks he's so cool. I mean, his name literally means victory. I'm pretty sure.
Does it really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, damn.
So it's just one of those things. So he's very arrogant, and for some reason, he just can't stand Deku, even though he's known Deku his whole life. So he pretty much just bullies him and, comes at him for being quirkless and says that he can never be a hero and all that stuff. So that's a part of it in this realm.
Yeah. So then comes the one fateful day. Deku is coming home from school, and he gets attacked by a slime villain, but he gets saved by the man, the myth, the legend, Almighty! Yes.
So it comes to a situation where Deku is saved by All Might, and he's like starstruck, in general, and he wants to talk to All Might, but there's something going on with All Might. You see like this inner monologue where he's saying he doesn't have a lot of time left, and you're wondering what that means. So he's like, thank you, it's great to see you, bye, and he dips off, right? And he's like leaping in the air, like super, like almost flying, pretty much, but not. And he's like, why am I feeling a little heavy? And he sees that Deku is on his leg, being like, wait, I need to talk to you. And he's like, yo, what is good with this kid? And basically, he ends up landing and making sure Deku is safe and everything. But in that process, he sees that All Might has run out of time, and he poofs into this really skinny, drug-looking version of All Might.
This frail skeletal man.
Yeah, maybe we should look that up, actually. Can we find an image of skinny All Might?
I mean, he's there.
Yeah, you can see. So this is like the section where he's meeting him, right? So when they talk, first of all, this is a secret. So basically what happened is that All Might had fought All for One at one point in time. All Might is a successor of the quirk One for All. He's the 7th?
Yes.
So he's the 7th user of One for All. So that explains why he was so strong in the first place, because hundreds of years have passed by, and One for All has been stockpiling all that time with each different user. And it's basically the user's destiny to fight All for One and finally defeat him. Now, none of them have been strong enough at this time because All for One is so powerful, and One for All was kind of a baby quirk. Up until this point.
Right.
But All Might is the first one to actually defeat All for One, but it came at a cost.
Yeah.
So his body is damaged, and he can't maintain the abilities of One for All for much longer.
Yeah.
Be successful.
I think it's like a total of 3 hours or something.
Yeah. So he's looking for a replacement, aka a successor.
Yeah.
And it's the funny thing is that All Might was originally quirkless as well before receiving the quirk from his senpai, so to speak.
Yeah. So then, Deku asks him, it's like, can I be a hero even though I'm quirkless? And his first answer is
no.
No.
So, obviously, Deku is destroyed, and to some degree. But the thing about Deku is that no matter how many times he's been told that he can't be a hero, he still wants to be a hero.
Yeah.
And still cares to be a hero and wants to save people.
Yeah, and still tries. Because then he comes home from that, and that slime monster returns. And is now attacking Bakugo,
who happened to be in the area as well.
So then, and there's bystanders all around, and the slime person's holding him hostage and stuff, and no one's going to rescue Bakugo. So Deku decides on himself to try and rescue him.
So All Might is in the crowd at the time, and is, I think, either A, cannot transform yet because he hasn't recovered, or is like just getting there and assessing the scene, and out of nowhere you just see Deku sprint towards the slime monster, jump on it, and try to stop Bakugo from getting, eaten, I guess.
Oh no, like possessed or whatever.
No, because he was kind of like getting sucked into it.
I thought it was like the slime monster was trying to hide in somebody.
No. So the slime monster is this giant thing, and Bakugo's like getting stuck, and he's slowly putting Bakugo in the inside.
No, yeah, I'm thinking of the first one, the first time. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So what happens is that All Might ends up saving both of them because obviously Deku can't do anything, and All Might has a realization that Deku's inert impulse to save people shows that he does have the qualities to become a hero.
Yeah.
And he bestows one for all upon Deku.
So this is where this is
the shot where All Might says you can be a hero to him.
Yeah.
Which is like honestly a monumental scene that changed Deku's entire life. Like if this was like after all that and All Might was still like no. Nah. Yeah, like who knows what path he would have Deku would have ended up on, in general. So that brings us to UA.
Yes.
So essentially there's this hero high school. There's several in the area, district, or country, but there's one in particular in Deku's, vicinity that's called UA. And it is one of the top hero schools. That's where All Might went to school.
Yeah.
And he applied and now has to take the entrance exam.
Yeah, so there's like a whole big training montage. It's like your body is too weak to wield.
Yeah, so like the thing about All Might is that when All Might took the powers from his predecessor, he, despite not having a quirk prior, his body was such in good shape that he was able to use 100% of One for All from the beginning.
Yeah.
Deku is not that way. He's just a flimsy little kid. So he has this whole like training montage on the beach where he like cleans trash and stuff.
Yeah.
And he gets super ripped. But even then he has a drawback of using One for All. And you can say that also One for All was transferred by consuming DNA of the predecessor. So Deku pretty much ate an All Might hair.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing about All Might is now not just skinny All Might and weak forever. He still has the embers of One for All, but he has a time limit to how long he can use the abilities until it's completely out of his system. It's almost like when you take medicine and it's like still in your body for like a few days after taking it. It has like a half-life, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that.
The vestiges of
that's the thing. It keeps it in there for a slight time. One for All almost has like a sentience to it. To some extent, the way they describe it.
Yeah.
So when Deku acquires One for All and initially starts to use it, he's using it at 100%, but his body can't take it. So anytime that he does something, like throws a punch at 100%, his arm gets completely broken and destroyed.
Yeah.
Which is, a conflict in the character that he has to overcome.
Right, because like the whole big thing with the entrance exam is like it's a field test of sorts where it's like, all right, there's robots you can fight and stuff, and there's like rescue situations, and and he uses his power once to save another major character. Would you say is Ochako a major character?
I would say so. Yeah. So he ends up like Michael was saying, he ends up helping during the entrance exam. So it's another display of Deku's urge and necessity to save people, even at the expense of his own goals or his own ambition.
Right.
So he ends up saving Uravity or Ochako, which is a female protagonist in the show, and ultimately, from what we suspect, a love interest of Deku, because Deku gets flustered the minute he sees her because he's a nerd.
Yeah.
And she ends up, starting to like him too. But that's important because he doesn't have a hero name at this time. But she decides to call him Deku, or says she should use Deku.
Yeah.
And turn it into something that once meant loser into something that's great. And he really likes that idea and kind of adopts that, and that's why she's kind of important in the beginning of it for sure.
Yeah.
And so basically he passes the test by the skin of his teeth.
Yeah, because like the robot he saves her from is like this huge monstrosity, but it costs 0 points. So like, but like there's a secret system where like, oh, there's rescue points, so he gets a bunch of rescue points, and that's how he passes.
Yeah, it's pretty much a cop out, but but hey, it works, right? It works, and this is where he gets accepted, and Bakugo also gets accepted to UA,
Of course.
which he can't stand that Deku is there
Yeah.
because he's also confused because he knows that Deku
It's quirkless.
was quirkless, but now Deku has a quirk.
Yeah.
So Bakugo's extra pissed because he feels like he's been lied to this whole time.
Yeah.
That Deku was just playing him for a fiddle. And pretty much at this point, you get the main cast, which is Class 1A.
Class 1A.
Of the freshmen, if you want to put it in American terms.
Oop. There they are.
There you go. If you want to put it in American terms, this is the freshman year class. And you get to meet the main cast, Kirishima, who is the red guy with the red hair. You get to meet Ida, who is in this the kind of like mech suit type looking thing.
This is the one thing I have to say I give credit to My Hero for, is that, you know, there's that anime trope of like spot the main character in the room sort of thing. And like with My Hero, it feels like there is no, like that trope is kind of like bypassed because everyone is so wacky with the design that it's like, oh, they're all their own little main characters.
He's also, for the most part, been very good about giving everyone a chance to shine.
Yeah.
You know, like everyone gets their own opportunities, but we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a male, I guess.
Stop. Momo gets some shine.
Sure, yeah.
Froppy.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, you get to meet the peeps in his class, and you start to slowly see Deku formulating himself as a contender in his class. Now, as he studies in UA, he gets curriculum in how to become a hero. So there are training courses that are involved,
Right.
where the class is put against each other. And there was this section where Bakugo and Deku had to fight against each other.
Yeah.
Now, to me, we're not going to get into like every little nitty-gritty detail about everything, about all the other, students and everything. We're primarily going to focus on like the main characters and like main moments. Like when side characters get a moment, we'll talk about them, or if they're relevant to a main scene or whatever the case may be. But you see this, I want to mention briefly that you get this fight scene with Deku and Bakugo. And this is I'm not wrong, right? This is before he learns full cowling, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Way before.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I don't want to, get something wrong. So basically, you see that this is the first time that Deku's kind of stood up for himself.
Yes.
Against Bakugo, and you start to see this change. Like you get this montage of like flashbacks and stuff when they're kids, and you pretty much see Deku get bullied and verbally abused and physically abused by Bakugo and his clique all the time. And he even when that's the case, Deku's still reaching out his hand to help Bakugo if he's in trouble. Like I think he fell in the water, and Deku was the first one to go and save him. And I think that's infuriating Bakugo, like to some extent. I think that infuriates Bakugo because he has a superiority complex. So this quirkless little kid is trying to help him, who's supposed to be number one. You know? Because he also admires All Might and wants to have dreams of becoming, the number one hero, which is what Deku wants as well. And you get this montage of basically like, it's kind of a draw, I believe, right? Not one person wins or the other. I don't remember, to be honest.
Well, Deku wins because he sets up gravity to steal. Because the whole objective for that class is like 2 classmates are the villains, 2 are the heroes. The villains are defending a nuclear weapon sort of thing, and the heroes have to go and confiscate it or arrest
take
them.
down the heroes. I mean the villains. Excuse me.
So he sets up Ochako to grab the bomb with like an uppercut blast, whatever thing, and because like. Bakugo is trying to get a fight, right? He's like, square off of me, like I'm gonna show you I'm the best. And like he already is pushing it because like he's got these gauntlet things that store up his sweat, and they can do like this huge burst. and he lets one loose in the building, and it's like this massive explosion. And literally, All Might's like, "You do that again, and you will be disqualified," sort of thing, because it's that dangerous.
Well, I think like it's a good time to discuss like Deku versus Bakugo's ideology at this point in time. So like Deku is more about saving people and making sure people are okay.
Yeah.
While Bakugo is more like destroying the villains, and it doesn't matter what happens in the wake as long as that's something that occurs. So Bakugo is not like, because there's levels to being a hero, right? Like obviously you got to stop the villains, but you also have to protect the people, and you have to be one with the people, like serving the people. Like the people have to like you.
Yeah, well, yeah, Bakugo's whole thing is that he values strength over everything else, and it's like, to be the best hero, you have to be the strongest hero.
That's his mentality, and that's not necessarily the case, as we all will learn.
Yeah.
As we go on. So at this time, in one of their training arcs, we have the introduction of our villain cast to some degree, where we get the first glimpse of the League of Villains.
League of Villains.
So what happens is there's this character named Shigaraki who has these like hands like on him and things of that nature. And he's pretty much has a quirk called Decay. So if he touches you with all 5 fingers, you will turn into dust.
Yeah.
There's also Kurogiri, right?
Yep.
Who is like this smoke cloud character who can teleport people through his like cloud aura.
Yeah.
Or whatever the case may be. And they also, was there someone else at that time too?
This boy, the Nomu.
So yeah, that's what I was thinking. I just want to make sure. So there's also this thing that you see in front of us called, or behind us rather, the USJ Nomu. So a Nomu, from what we find out in this section, is a person who has been implemented with multiple quirks.
Yeah, and it's basically like an amalgamation of a person.
Yeah. So it's like this. So there's this whole theory that like people who contain multiple quirks will reach like this point called the singularity, where they end up like evolving into something different, you know?
Yeah.
And this is kind of like the first glimpse of what that looks like,
Right.
which is kind of horrifying. But this thing was incredibly strong. It was something that only All Might could take out, and he barely did it.
Well, because like Shigaraki like says like this thing has been designed to fight against All Might.
Yeah.
And like you see like it, because it's, what was it, the quirks are like, it's got regeneration first off, and then it's kind of got this like resistance against blunt force or something.
Yeah.
So like All Might is just wailing against this thing, and it's like doing nothing, and it's kind of just like whatever, and then it hits him back.
Yeah, so that's the thing, and like that's where it kind of comes into play with One for All too, because All Might does defeat it, but like barely, and like you can argue All Might is not Prime All Might, which is kind of established from the beginning that Prime All Might was almost undefeatable in terms of what, like, you know, what they've seen in this world so far. And at this point, you know, who knows if Prime All Might would have such a problem with it, but at this point in time with his abilities, All Might barely beat him. And it shows also that he had to dig deep.
Yeah.
You know, and it again references the sentience of his quirk, and that he's, you know, asking the past users to lend him the strength to defeat this creature.
And I owe in that, like, Deku also kind of helps him with this, because like he kind of, what was it? Well, because All Might is not there immediately, like he's somewhere else.
He's somewhere else. Yes.
So Deku, because Shigaraki is going after some of the other students, and like he goes in to fight Shigaraki, and Nomu blocks, and he kind of, I don't remember what exactly happens, but I know at least he stalls enough time so All Might can get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing about, like, again, I think the thing about One for All is that it's a stockpile quirk, right? So Deku has the powers of All Might, and now can cultivate it to his own and increase that as well. So he's destined at this point, once he can control it, to be stronger than All Might. So at least now he can contend with All Might in reality, but his body can't contend with the power. So he gets damaged. But if he didn't, then he'd be as strong as All Might.
Right.
So in this vein, the heroes retreat after the Nomu is defeated, and everything is fine. You know, All Might skitters away because he's about to turn into Skinny All Might again.
Yeah.
And that's so far, that's a secret at the moment in time.
Yeah.
And One for All itself is a secret, so not many people know about it.
Right.
Now, at this time, because the League of Villains were there becomes this looming idea that how did they know?
Right. Like, because what happens is like Shigaraki and Ko teleport in with a whole cast of thugs and stuff.
Yes.
And they're like, All Might should have been here. We checked the schedule and stuff, and they're like, how did they get a schedule? Like, how do they know?
Yeah. How did they know they would be here? How do they know how to get past the fences?
Right.
Everything.
So then the whole theory is like, is there someone within UA
that is co-aligned
who is a saucy baka
with League of Villains?
Yeah.
So keep that in mind, because that's something that'll be referenced within these parts every once in a blue moon.
Yeah, that's going to be on the test, so you put that in your notes.
Put that in your notes. If you don't take notes and you don't know this stuff and comment, it's 1,000 lashes to everybody.
This will be on the exam.
Yes. So moving on from there, we have the first tournament arc of the shonen anime, My Hero Academia.
Oh yeah, it wouldn't be a shonen without a tournament.
Without a tournament arc. So this is Class 1A fighting against each other. Now there are two fights I'd rather talk about briefly, and I think because we're going on this theme about this correlation between Bakugou and Deku, right? Because that's what we're mainly focusing on.
Right.
So I think you see something in Bakugou like that. He's not just a piece of shit in this portion, because you see him fight Ochako, aka Gravity. And now, just to clarify, because we haven't really talked about her quirk is levitation.
Well, it's kind of like anti-gravity.
Anti-gravity.
Like if she touches something with all 5 fingers, then it will start to float.
Yes, so she can float herself, objects, vice versa. However, her drawback is that she gets nauseous if she does it too much.
Yeah.
So in that vein, she has to fight Bakugou, who declares here, like, this is also live for like people who are at home and on the streets. Like,
it's in like a big stadium.
It's a big stadium. It's this big event. It's like the NCAA tournaments or college football. You know, everyone can.
It's
watch
WrestleMania.
Yeah. So everyone's watching, and Bakugou declares that he's going to be number 1, and that no one can contest with him at the school.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, this is the first time he gets like a bad rep to a degree, because he comes off really arrogant and like an asshole.
Well, because like I mean, just comparing the two quirks, like Uraka is kind of this like bubbly girl sort of thing, like very like a cinnamon roll, if you will.
A cinnamon roll. That's a good way to describe it.
And you have the guy who wants his hero name to be King Murder. What was it? What was it? King Murder Explosion.
Yes, King Murder Explosion God or something like that.
So like, it's very obvious. Like, yeah, the crowd wants to root with like the cute girl, not this asshole.
But the thing is that you see is that like people are worried because they think that Bakugou is going too hard on her. Yeah. But what you don't realize is because he respects her and her powers, and he knows if he doesn't go hard that he can lose. Yeah. Which shows some type of I don't know, what's the word I'm looking, virtue in
well, like Bakugou has like a respect threshold, right? It's like if you reach a certain level of power in his eyes or ability, then he starts like, okay, all right, like I'm still gonna beat you, but I'm gonna take you seriously. Sort of
yeah, like he can like, he won't like, you know, berate you because he respects your abilities, and he still thinks he's superior because that's Bakugou. But yeah, so Bakugou does end up winning the fight and moving on. But she puts up a good show, and it's good development for her because she tries hard, and she's like one of those people who speak, like, everyone has their own reasons for becoming a hero in this class, and hers is money. Her parents are poor and they talk about money a lot, so she's kind of like been conditioned to like worry about that stuff. And her first ambitions, you know, when she goes to school is to make money. as a hero, so that way she doesn't have to be broke anymore, or her
Yeah.
parents don't have to be broke anymore. But as time goes on, you'll start to see that goal shift, and you see how the main character Deku has an impact on the people in his class.
Yeah.
The second fight of the tournament would be Todoroki versus Deku. Now, we haven't really discussed Todoroki, but he is one of the big three, you can say, of the story. And this would be a good segment to really talk about him. Do you want to get into that, Michael?
Yeah, so Zuko.
Seriously, though.
Yeah, so basically, Todoroki is one of the like recommended students, right? He gets in on recommendation because his father is the second hero, like the second rated hero, Endeavor, right?
Yes.
And like at first when you meet Todoroki, he's kind of
He's an edgelord.
Yeah.
He's a super edgelord.
Yeah, he's your Sasuke. He's your like, I'm here to win and I'm here to make friends.
Yeah, it's like I just need power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm ambivalent to good and evil, you know. But because like he literally goes up to Deku and is
I use
like,
Ouija boards.
he goes up to Deku and he's like, "You're my enemy for this tournament," and it's like, okay, like,
yeah, Deku's just like, all
right, sure. But you find out like there's a big feud of sorts going on between him and his father, and because Todoroki has like a dual quirk.
Yeah, so like we mentioned earlier, that having multiple quirks is relatively taboo and not something that happens. And like I said, there's like people can't handle having multiple, essentially.
Well,
to some extent.
Well, also because like if two people like have a child and they both have different quirks, the quirks sometimes kind of like meld.
Yeah, they kind of fuse.
Yeah.
So I think like let's prefix and talk about Endeavor a little bit, because it's important to why Todoroki is the way he is, right? So Endeavor is the number 2 hero. He has a fire quirk where he can like set himself ablaze and shoot flames and like all these other things.
Yeah.
At one point in time, he created this move called Flame Fire Fist or something of that nature. It is his most damning and most powerful move whatsoever he's cultivated, right?
Yeah.
As immense fire, immense heat, etc. But it came at a cost, in the sense that he realized that his body will overheat if he goes that hot consistently.
Yeah.
And he realized his limits and came to the conclusion that he can never surpass All Might with his current form.
And that's a big thing for him because like he's obsessed
with surpassing All Might. He, for some reason, he can't. Living in All Might's shadow for him has been so traumatic that it's only thing that he lives for. So he comes up with this big brain idea where he finds this woman who comes from a nice family that has an ice quirk. He pays them off, marries her, and is pretty much with her solely to have the perfect child who have the ice and fire quirks that will be able to, mend his own quirk and surpass All Might.
Yeah, so you can really tell this is a healthy relationship and a healthy family dynamic of every time he has a kid, he tests them to see if they're the right quirk fusion. Yeah. And if they're not good enough, he just basically discards them.
Yeah, doesn't care about them anymore. So Shoto was his prized possession and his success. So he treated him extremely hard. He trained him hard. He pushed them very, very hard. And it's not the first time the abuse has occurred in the family, to the point where his mother has a mental breakdown and kind of sees Endeavor within Shoto, and throws boiling water at his face, hence the scar.
Yeah, you can't
really see it on this side, but he has a scar on his red hair side, on his fire side, from the boiling water. It put his mother into a mental institute. The Todoroki family is pretty fucked up.
It's pretty bad.
So he hates his father and refuses to use his fire quirk and only uses his ice quirk to shit on his dad, pretty much.
It's spite.
Yes.
Like, I will never be you. I would never succeed with your quirk. I will use it with my own.
Yes. So this is an impactful moment when we come back to Deku versus Todoroki or Shoto, just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
And you see at this point in time that Deku is trying to save Shoto, in the sense that he's saying that quirk, that fire quirk, everything with your dad, it's not him, it's you. It's what you make of it.
Right.
And I want to fight you at your best, like your full power. Like, don't let him, like,
like, this power is yours. Right?
Yes, this power is yours. So, like, again, you see an example of, it's not, Deku could maybe win if he just uses his ice quirk. But
I look, Todoroki is literally like, you just give yourself a disadvantage, right? And he's like, yeah, but whatever, let's do this.
Seriously. So, like, when it was just a 1v1 with quirks, now it's a 2v1, and Deku's satisfied with that because he feels like he helped Shoto, in that way. And Shoto ends up using his fire quirk on Deku. He ends up beating Deku with his combination of his quirks in this crazy battle. And at this time, Deku is making a name for himself as being strong but reckless, because at this point in time, like we mentioned earlier, whenever he uses his quirk, he uses it at 100% and breaks something. So he's come to the conclusion that he uses the power with his fingers because he has multiple. So as opposed to punching and his own arm being just broken and unusable, he uses his fingers one at a time, but it grosses the crowd out. It makes them feel kind of weird because he literally breaks his hands and his arms during the whole fight, and you can see vividly how bad they are. And
well, because then the afterwards, the healer nurse person, she's literally like, I'm not gonna heal these kind of injuries anymore. Like, learn a way to not hurt yourself this, like, using your power.
Yeah, so they have this nurse that can, like, kiss you and, like, heal your injuries in a faster.
Yeah, it's not as pleasant as it sounds. She's an old lady. Like, it's not like a ooh, like, it's like,
yeah, it's not midnight.
No.
But yeah, so in that vein, she can heal things, but she's not going to keep doing that with him, and it's not something that he should continue to do because he's damaging himself. And
also, is it this fight afterwards? You see how badly his hands fucked up. Like,
yes, so it's at this point in time that he starts to gain scars on his hands that won't heal, and he starts to get told that if he keeps doing this, he's going to get permanent damage that can't be fixed.
Right.
So which leads us to the next section, which is the internship arc.
Yes. Well, we start addressing these problems.
Yes. So Deku and the class end up being able to go on these tiny internships with actual pro heroes, and because most of these pro heroes, like how you have a law firm, they have firms where they have sidekicks, and like different areas and districts where they cover. So Deku decides to go to this old guy who was All Might's teacher named Gran Torino. Now, Gran Torino's quirk pretty much is that he can kind of bounce around.
Well, it's kind of like speed almost. It's like,
yeah, he propels himself through his feet, and he's very aerodynamic. In the sense that he can like dash around and fly like wow, all the way around.
Yeah.
And he gives Deku the big brain idea to be like, instead of using 100% of one for all in one section of your body, try to lower the percentage down and use it throughout all your body. Channel it through all your body so that not one limb or one finger or vice versa is taking the full force of what you're distributing.
Yeah, so then Deku dubs this all for one full one for all full count.
I was about to say, I was like, this is the dark timeline where All Might said you can't be a hero, and he brutally stabs All Might.
Deku is all for one son.
Yeah, right.
Whoops. I feel like all for one rolls off the tongue better. Like, I don't know why.
One for all for one.
All for one.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Anyway, yeah, so one for all full counting.
So basically he transfers 5% of One for All's power throughout his whole body, and he gets like this electricity that's green around him and his aura. Yeah. He's faster, he's stronger, but now he's not breaking limbs. And the goal pretty much is to increase the percentage of full cowling as he proceeds and gets stronger and more capable with the quirk itself.
Right.
Now, with that in mind, the internship arc ends, and we get one of the more impactful moments and when my hero really starts to pick up speed.
So we need to prefix this. During the tournament arc, another major character, Ida.
Yes.
Right. He has kind of like a family lineage.
Of heroes. Yeah, pretty much. His brothers are heroes as well.
Yeah. And are they all speed based? Like
yes, they all have. So basically, he has engines on his feet, and he can. That's like on his calves, pretty much. Like he has actual pistons like coming out of his calves.
Quirks are weird.
So he's a speed quirk. Obviously, he's the class president. He's one of Deku's closest friends.
Yeah.
And because him and Ochako were the two that actually like first talked to Deku and like had him warm up a little bit.
Yeah.
And obviously they have a good relationship together and they're rooting each other on.
Yeah, and he's very much like the nerd, like by the books rule guy. Like
he's the class president, the hall pass guy.
Yeah.
You have your hall pass. That's pretty much Ida.
Yeah. So then during the tournament arc, he gets a call from his mother that his brother has been attacked by this villain. And
this villain's name is Stain.
Stain, a.k.a.
the hero killer.
The hero killer.
Yeah, my boy Stain. So Stain is an interesting character because his ideology is that the heroes of today's society do not live up to par to what the term hero means. The only hero that does is All Might.
Right.
Now, and he says that he can only be killed by All Might. Now, Stain is a character who actually, his origins start in the spin-off series My Hero Vigilantes, where I'm not gonna get crazy. I'm not gonna get crazy. I promise. I'm not gonna get crazy. I want to stay focused. But basically, he fights like this vigilante called like Hero Crusher or something like that, and he gets his ass whooped. And he, hard. And he sees that kind of the vigilante is what the being a hero means, and starts to adopt the title of Stain and becomes the hero killer. So he, like I said, heroes have a multitude of reasons for being heroes. They can do it for fame. They could do it for money. They could do it for institutional power. They can just do it because they like it. Gives them pleasure or whatever.
Yeah.
There's any type of reason. It's like why when people want to be celebrities, it's like it's money. You're popular and like everyone loves you for the most part.
Yeah.
It's like one of those things. So he feels like that's the wrong way of being a hero. He thinks that the only thing a hero should want to do is save people.
Yeah.
So he goes around killing people and hurting people, and he's permanently damaged Ida's brother to the point where he can no longer be the hero.
Right.
Ingenuine or something like that, right?
Enigmium or
God.
Ingenium.
Oh God.
Whatever.
Oh God. Hold on.
Enigmium, right? And it's
we'll be right back.
Cabal from Mortal Kombat. No.
Yeah, Ingenium. Yeah. So this leads Ida to go on this little revenge path where he's searching for Stain.
Yeah, so like he's utilizing his internship as a way to get closer to the location where Stain is chilling.
Yes. So it comes to the fact that he does encounter Stain and begins an altercation with Stain.
Well, for that even too, Stain is also approached by the League of Villains.
That's true too. He's approached by because like the League of Villains is trying. So the prefix again, the League of Villains is really a shithole. Like it's not a powerful organization. It's just a couple guys trying to be destructive, and they don't really have like any notoriety or anything of the sort. Now there's like you can tell there's someone pulling the strings in the background, and that seems like who is that, like they seem like they have they're the ones who are like funding this operation.
Well, yeah, like you could tell there is someone probably in the background who's like the mastermind, but meanwhile Shigaraki's kind of like flailing around, like
like he doesn't really know what he's doing, you know.
He doesn't have an idea.
He's not a leader.
Yeah.
And the thing about My Hero, which is so good, is that as much as a story about heroes, it's also a story about villains, and you really get to see like their come up, like where you normally have like the protagonist be like this loser who's really weak, and like all these heroes like are building their way up. It's more like the villains are that way because heroes have such a dominance on society at this moment.
There's a stigma against.
So Stain is like fuck y'all pretty much for the most part.
Yeah.
And so is that a good place to go back? All right. So now Ida is now encountering Stain, and they go at it. Now Stain's quirk is that if he cuts you and licks your blood, you pretty much are unable to move. Is that correct?
Yeah, if he ingests your blood, like you kind of paralyze, and then that's how he's able to kill people so easily. So he manages to nab Ida, and then it's like, oh well.
Yikes. And he kind of flames Ida too, because he's kind of like, you're supposed to be a hero, but you're like doing revenge, and you're
because he catches a Stain while he's about to get another guy.
Yeah.
So it's like, why didn't you rescue that hero? Well, you just came after me for revenge. That's not heroic. Like, you should have tried to save him.
Instead of saving him, and it also goes back to the ideology about saving people is the most important thing, right? About being a hero in general. And the fact that, like, you know, he was so bloodthirsty and, like, so vengeful, you know?
Yeah.
I'm vengeance. That he lost sight of what it really means to be a hero. But then you find Deku, who comes in and saves Ida from being attacked, and he has his brawl.
Oh, that's why. Because while the Stain thing's happening, Nomu attacked that location too.
Yes, because Shigaraki is deciding to try to kill or hurt Stain in some type of way. So he's trying to blame, or he's trying to, in some way, he's trying to almost make it seem like Stain is a part of them, I think, by having him be operating while Nomu
he's hopping onto Stain's.
Yeah, he's kind of hopping onto Stain's notoriety, because Stain is starting to get like attention.
Yeah.
And so the heroes are out and about, trying to stop everything.
Yeah, because Deku and and Gran Torino are on a train to the same city district area just to do some basic hero stuff, and then the Nomu attack happens. So then Deku knows that Ida is there, and then finds his internship partner and is like, we can't find where Ida is.
Yeah.
And then it's like, uh-oh.
Yes. So Deku finds him, and he starts to fight Stain, and Stain takes an interest in Deku because he's starting to see Deku's tendencies of saving people. Deku also sends a quick text to Shoto, who
is the whole class, right? Is like SOS mass text.
I think so.
Yeah.
Shoto's the one that sees it and is in the area.
Yeah.
So he comes as well. And basically Deku gets hit by the blood thing too, so he's out, and then they all kind of start to fight against it.
Well, because they realize it's by blood types of how much you're affected.
Yeah.
So then, I don't know, like, was it Deku has a shorter time than Ida or something?
That's yes. So, all in all, and like I said, we can go into the nitty gritty, play by play of exactly how the fight goes down, but we're not going to do that. We don't want to spoil the fun. If you're interested, you can watch it yourself in that regard. But essentially, they come to a standstill. Multiple heroes come, and Stain is apprehended. Yeah. Now, but there's this intricate scene that is broadcasted, I believe, right?
Well, because what happens is they defeat Stain, and it's like Endeavor comes along because like he's the official hero, so it's like he needs to arrest him and stuff. And at that moment, a winged Nomu comes down and snags Deku, and the heroes can't reach him in time. So he starts like being lifted off, and Stain actually is the one who takes down a Nomu
and saves Deku.
Yeah, and he does this whole big speech about like heroes and stuff, and that gets captured and broadcast, and that starts a whole new thing.
Yes. So now the thing is about Stain, and it also shows about his character that's impactful again, is that Stain doesn't hate heroes. he hates fake heroes, and it's just his ideology of what fake hero means.
Yeah.
So he looks at Deku as an All Might like figure. So therefore he saves him because he thinks he's of value to the hero world.
Yes.
He doesn't want villainy. He just wants heroes to be genuine and true, which is like an admirable thought, but the way he's going about it obviously is horrific. You know what I mean?
It's, I mean, very aptly, if you want to make a comparison to Batman, it's the Riddler thing of like, he hates the corruption of the city, so his method to route this is like mass slaughter.
Yeah,
you know?
he's fighting corruption with corruption, essentially.
Yeah, right.
And so this leads to villains, ironically, being inspired. Now, because Stain has been associated now with the League of Villains, people join the League of Villains in honor of Stain.
Right.
So you get Dobby, who is this fire user who's all burnt up and looks weird, and he says that he's a Stain follower. And then you get Toga, who is this crazy girl who loves blood, and she can, you know, use the quirks of the people.
Well, she like
she can I'm sorry, she does not use the quirks, excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself, that she can turn into the person who she consumes the blood of.
Yeah.
And she's like obsessed with blood, and she's kind of psycho. You get Twice, who is this character who can duplicate himself and others, but he has this like multiple personality disorder thing where he's not sure if he's just a copy or the real one. And he has like this weird thing where he can't take off his mask. So there's all these damaged people, and he gets that crocodile dude, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his name now. Spinner, and Mr. Compress as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so the League of Villains has now expanded due to Stain's influence, Stain's influence, even though Stain is not really even associated with the League of Villains.
And Shigaraki seething. He's like,
yeah,
I had my Nomu, and then Stain came along, and he made it all about him. And
yeah, like, so Shigaraki's kind of a kid in the sense that he's older than, like, he's like 16 maybe, and like maybe 17. He's young. He's still a teenager.
Is he? Oh.
But he's older than Deku and them, because they're like 14, 15. He is older, but he's still a teenager. So he's kind of immature, and he wants notoriety. Like, he wants to be the #1 villain, for example. So he's pissed that he doesn't get the fame that he wants, essentially, at this time. He's still not really a leader. You know, they're broke and don't have any money and don't have any resources, and, you know, they're working their way out. So that ends, and we get the next arc, which would be the Camp arc.
Actually,
yes.
Before we get there, I think there's one thing to address.
Sure, let's do it.
So, in a sort of like, what's it called? A slice of life episode.
Yes.
Like, it's the class 1A hanging out and stuff.
Sure.
And they go to the mall, right?
Yeah.
And while there, Shigaraki kind of takes Deku hostage.
That's true. He does do that.
And it's like in public, and like you can't tell it's Shigaraki yet. So, and he starts asking him questions. It's like, I don't understand. Why does everyone love Stain? And like what about us? We invaded UA and stuff, but like that's already off the radar.
Yeah.
And Deku in this kind of like, okay, well, either I answer him or I get killed sort of thing.
Yeah, so Shigaraki has 4 fingers on him, and he just needs one more to decapitate Deku by the neck.
Yeah. And Deku's like, well, Stain had like an ideology, like he had a motive that was understandable. You just have nothing.
It's just anarchy.
Yeah. And that kind of starts off like that clicks something in Shigaraki. It's like, oh, I get it now. Like,
I need to have a goal.
He needs to have a goal.
All right. Now we're moving on to the Campfire Arc. Right. So this is like another training scenario where they're in the woods in this like secluded area where no one is supposed to know about except for the teachers and the kids. And basically they meet this sister family that are like cats and shit, and they have like certain abilities, and they're slightly training them. And you also see this little kid, Koda or something, right?
Yeah.
And he hates heroes because his parents were heroes and killed by a villain. So he's not a big fan of heroes very much at all. And you get this scenario where the League of Villains sees. So it ties back to the tournament arc, because they saw how Bakugo is so brash and doesn't really give a shit about civilians, that they think that they can turn him to a villain. Right. So the whole point is, now this is the Bakugo kidnapping arc, where the League of Villains have found the students and are now attacking the students. So now the students either have to hide, fight, or get away from, get to the teachers and get away from the villains. So you get this one scene with this character named Dabi. So the Dabi character is a fire user, and you get two scenes with him that are impactful. One you see on the screen is with this character named Aoyama. So he's the laser guy, right? Now he's terrified of the villains and is hiding in a bush, and Dabi is walking past him. Now you see in the scene that Dabi notices that someone is in the bushes and keeps walking. So it gives you some illusion as to what's going on. Because again, you're like, how did they know they were there if this is some top secret thing? How are they getting this information, right? The second scene with Dabi is when he is interacting with Shoto, and he says his full name, right? And he gives him this look, and there's just this tone about Dabi that seems like he knows who Shoto is. And Dabi has a fire quirk, because Dabi is the most mysterious character in the show for a long time, where you just don't know much about his motives, or like what he's doing, or his reasonings, or who he is. Nothing is, and like obviously he looks, his skin is melted off. He has like stitches and like holding some skin pieces together, and like you don't, what's his story,
because even within the league, like, because you have Togu, who's kind of batshit crazy, but she still follows like Shigaragi's orders and stuff. Like Dabi is sort of this, like, he doesn't care at all of what's happening. He's just kind of like there.
He's there for a means to an end, but what is that end? And that's something that you have to figure out throughout the story.
And then the second big thing.
The second big thing is Deku's fight with Muscular. So Muscular is this villain that has joined the League of Villains, and he basically can compile muscle fibers on his body and make himself extremely strong. Now, Muscular has encountered Koda, the child that was a part of this campfire thing that's with the sisters, and you see that this Muscular character is the one that killed Koda's parents. So now he's terrified. Muscular doesn't give a shit about killing children or anybody.
He's a psychopath.
He's a psycho, like a full-on psycho. So he encounters Deku, and this is Deku's true test in terms of his skills. So Deku attempts to use full cowling and fight Muscular, and it's just not going his way, to the point where he decides and realizes that the only way to really defeat this guy is to use 100% of One for All, right? So he's doing it. His arms are bloody and beaten up, and Koda's just like, bro, stop, like, don't do this, like, you're gonna die, like, whatever. And Deku's like, it doesn't matter, I just need to save you. So another instance of Deku, and now you're starting to see something that's almost flawed about his ideology about saving people, is that he'll do it no matter what the cost is to himself. So his arms are messed up, his legs are messed up, everything is just, he's broken. And he finally, and it's like literally all broken bones, his arms is shattered, he's punching Muscular with all his might, this one last shot, digging so deep into One for All, and does a 1,000,000% Detroit smash and blows this man, flies this man like Team Rocket, and freaking just beats Muscular. You see this epic shot of Deku's victory pose, and you see Koda in awe of this 15-year-old kid. And you finally see that Deku's made his first fan. His first fan of his hero stardom. And this is really a monumental moment where he defeats his first villain, no matter what the cost, and saves the civilians. Now, again, the consequences of this now, come into play, because the whole point of this was to single out Bakugo and take him.
Yeah.
Right. And Deku is now with fellow, classmates and is with Bakugo to some degree. And you see that Kirogiri's portal shows up right behind Bakugo.
Yeah.
And they grab him. Now, Deku is trying desperately to get to Bakugo in time, but he's so broken from his fight with Muscular that he just falls and is unable to do so. And that's his first failure as a hero as well. As a consequence.
And also, they don't just get Bakugo. They get one of the sisters, too.
Yeah, so one of the sisters is taken, and her quirk is stolen.
Yes. Because now we finally go to the League of Villains, and there's our boy.
Yes. So this is the Baccago Rescue Arc. So at this moment in time, the heroes formulate a plan because they find out where they're hiding and to save Bakugo. So All Might, the students initially make a plan to save him on their own.
Yeah,
that's it's Kirishima, Ida, Bakugo, and
Momo.
And it's not Momo, is it?
Yep,
Momo's
because she puts the tracker on.
Oh, so it's Momo as well.
Yeah.
So isn't it what's his face? The electric guy. Isn't he there too?
No.
Denki or whatever.
No.
He's not there?
It's because it's Ida tries stopping them. Because he's like, you're doing the same thing I did with Sting.
Yeah.
Right. So it becomes, it only allows it to happen if he comes and supervises and makes sure they don't do anything. So Ida, Deku, Momo, Todoroki, Kirishima.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they all formulate this plan to save Bakugo, and to cut to not to fill in gaps, but just to get into the next scene. Basically, the main heroes, like the actual pro licensed heroes, also come and attack, and All Might also attacks the bar where they're being held.
So the prefix is while Bakugo's in the chair, they try coercing him to their side,
and he refuses.
Yeah, and you can see a little more of Bakugo's philosophy of like I'm never going to be a villain ever. Fuck you guys. I'm going to be the #1 hero.
Yeah, so even no matter how brash or how violent or how cruel he may seem, he still wants to be a hero. He doesn't want to side with the villains.
Yeah, which is interesting because King Murder Explosion, right?
Yeah, King Murder Explosion Gods has a nice villain ring to it.
Yeah, right.
So the heroes come in, All Might smashes in, and they're able to get Bakugo out of the room essentially.
Yeah.
And it comes to this point where you create this character team up where Bakugo they realize, so there's this thing about them that they understand. We've been talking a lot about Deku and Bakugo, right? And how they have all this history. But Deku and Bakugo at this time are not really on good terms.
Yeah.
Oh, we should also prefix that I forgot to mention this, way earlier on. So we're gonna run back really quickly to before the tournament. Deku tells Bakugo about his quirk.
Well, not in full.
Not entirely, but he does mention that he's received it from All Might. He knows.
I don't know if he explicitly said it's from All Might. I think he said he was given a power.
No, I'm pretty sure he knows it's from All Might.
Does he? I don't remember.
Because he's part of the loop, and he doesn't find out later on. He's part of the loop ever from that point on. To some extent. So let's just say Bakugo finds out essentially, but he doesn't tell anyone because it's supposed to be a secret. And for All Might's sake, he doesn't tell anybody, not for Deku, essentially.
Yeah, I think this happens after.
You think this happens after this?
It happens in the big fight.
No, it doesn't because he already knows. He's like, you still haven't made that power your own yet.
I'm mixing up details.
You're mixing up details, but he finds out before this happens. I know for a fact he does.
Okay.
If someone in the audience can prove us wrong or knows better, leave a comment and let us know.
Yeah.
So we're going back now.
Okay.
So they're not friends, but Bakugo is friends with Kirishima, and Kirishima's the red-haired guy whose quirk is that he can harden his body like a rock.
Yeah.
Essentially. And what they do is that they launch themselves.
Well, we're going skipping ahead a little bit.
All right, let's prefix.
Okay, so let's start off with while there's a raid on the bar, there's also a raid on another location where they think all the Nomu stuff is happening. So 2 hero groups go and raid.
That's true.
And they basically seize the Nomu base, and it's like, all right, cool. And then the figure steps out. Our main villain, if you will.
All for
one. And this monster just absolutely wrecks all these heroes.
Yeah, it's like top 3 heroes, top 4 heroes.
Yeah.
And they just get bodied.
They get bodied almost instantly. And he also like saves the villains from the bar. Like he like warps them out and then warps Nomu's in. And like Bakugou gets sucked away and you see, oh my, like, no! Like, yeah. And you're like, oh fuck, like what is this guy's deal? And Deku and the group are literally outside the Nomu factory and they're all like holding their breaths because this man is like radiating just such evil intent. You're like if they get found out.
Well, they saw what he did to the freaking. So like this warehouse is like where they keep planes. Let's like, you know, like picture that like kind of building and it's just obliterated into a crater.
Right.
So all for one is the mastermind that's been on the TV coaching Shigaraki and giving him some resources. And he basically reveals himself. We've talked about him before. So now you guys have a reference to like, you know, who he is.
Yeah.
And you don't really, like we mentioned that he gives and takes quirks, right? But he can hold as many quirks as he wants and use them.
Yeah.
So he can compile different quirks together. Like when he can do 2 strength quirks, 2 speed quirks, and an Air Force quirk.
Yeah.
And use it all at once.
Right.
To create this, and you know.
And he's been around for like hundreds of years.
And no one really knows how. At least at first, you can assume that maybe something with his quirks or some experiments, like, you know, like how the Nomu made, like maybe there's something that ties to that.
So, but like he's amassed like hundreds of quirks now. Like he is stock full of them. So you see one point, like he's got the ability to teleport people. He's got these like red tentacle things that can sort of force people to activate their quirks. It's like, you don't really know what powers he has, and you're kind of like afraid to confront of like, because you don't know what he can do.
He basically has an arsenal, and he like anything that you can combat him with, he has something to counter it, essentially, or vice versa. So like he is like the apex predator, of the story for the most part. And his flaw with his quirk is that he almost has an addiction to take quirks.
Right.
So you see him enter the field. Michael, take it away.
So. You also find out he took the sister's quirk,
the search quirk,
and
which will come into play later on.
Yeah, and the Deku and Co are again right outside the building, holding their breaths, and like you see a flash image of Deku's mind of like if they get found out, they're instantly dead. Like they're gonna be plastered against the cement, and at that moment, the League has also showed up. And like all for one's like Shigaraki's like you didn't fail yet. Don't worry, we can still make this work. It's okay. It's a very weird.
It's a weird dynamic
at first because it's like you don't see a reason why he's babying Shigaraki so much.
Yeah.
And then
but the prefix All For One and Shigaraki go hand in hand. Like basically how Deku is the successor to All Might, Shigaraki is the successor to All For One.
Right. Yeah. And then out of the sky comes All Might. And he comes in and just goes on All For One. And thus begins the battle of the Titans.
Now, All Might wants to go in on this man, but he knows that Bakugou is in the vicinity and he can't go all out and not get Bakugou hurt.
Right.
So now Deku and Co have to devise a plan.
So that's where
to get him out, and that's where I was going. So I appreciate. Thank you for stopping me and giving details. So basically, they make this plan to see who's faster and how can they propel themselves.
Right.
And they make this kind of ramp thing, and boost themselves in the air.
Yeah.
Now, again, Deku and Bakugo are not buddies, right? And they want Bakugo to not only one, understand what they're trying to do, but also accept the invitation to be saved, right? So what they do is that they launch everyone in the air, and the last person to really, or at the forefront, is Kirishima, because he's actually Bakugo's friend.
Right.
So what Bakugo does is that he uses his explosion quirk to fly himself, like a torpedo in the air, and catches Kirishima's hand, and they're able to make their escape.
Yeah, and that's a really cool.
It's a really cool scene. In general of teamwork. Now All Might can go in. And fight at 100% capacity. So you have All for One versus One for All, aka All Might.
Right.
And it's this crazy battle.
So what's interesting about this fight is that you see All for One is not just a powerhouse of destruction, he's also a psycho manipulator.
Well, he's a tactician, for sure.
And his whole game is just eroding someone's will and their mind,
just breaking them down.
Because his whole fight with this is I'm gonna match you on your level. I'm only gonna use physical punchy quirks because I'm gonna fight how you fight, right? And then it's he hits him with the big reveals, right? You see All Might is basically he's on the last vestiges of
One for All.
Yeah. And you see him, he's midway through shifting back into his old form.
Yeah, so go back to just a prefix.
Yeah, okay.
To go back, All Might, like we've mentioned, has this thing where he has a time limit on how long he can use One for All. And since he's given One for All completely to Deku, he has a flame in his heart, you can say, just to visualize this, right? It's an ember of the power. And the time limit, the more he uses it, the ember burns. It's like a candle or a match, you know? The more you burn, it's gonna, the longer you leave it, it's gonna burn away, right? So he's on his last legs of the remaining power that he has for One for All.
Yeah.
And when he doesn't have that ability because of his injuries, he's like that skinny version of himself, right? So you see when he's literally on E, when it comes to his abilities, that he's half skinny, half muscular, and he's really pushing it to stay in that form.
And a newscaster is showing up, and people can now see the truth.
So so part of the secret is out.
Yeah.
That All Might is not in top form anymore.
Right. And then All for One drops a bomb of Shigaraki's true identity.
So we've mentioned that All Might has had a successor, right? Yeah. Her name is Nana Shimura.
A predecessor.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. A predecessor. Her name is Nana Shimura. She is the senpai to All Might, and she died saving All Might and fighting All for One. Right. He ran. He went to America to hide, pretty much, and to train, and then returned to Japan when he was ready. But he obviously, his master holds a special place in his heart, and he has a lot of adornment for her, right? Yeah. So he, All for One, knowing this and wanting nothing more than to crush All Might, manipulated this master plan and revealed it to him. And what is that master plan, Michael?
Is that Shigaraki is actually Tamura Shimura, right?
The grandson of Nana Shimura.
Right. And that's a huge blow of your predecessor's descendant is a villain sort of thing.
Right. And to make matters worse, in alignment with All for One.
Yeah. And it's because that's the thing with All for One. He psychologically just eats away at you. That's his real power.
He has plans on plans on plans. That man.
The giga brain.
Yeah, right.
I was 12 moves ahead of you, sort of thing.
Fucking 6D chess or something.
Yeah, really. And that All Might is completely in his skeletal form, and because Gran Torino's also there, and he's got batted away no problem. And there's some random civilian in the wreckage and like calling for help, and like everyone's kind of like, All Might, like, come on, you can do it. And with his last power, he goes in
and does this giant smash and defeats All for One.
United States of Smash
Plus Ultra.
Yeah, and just like punches this man into the ground, and he's just like done. GG's.
However, the rest of the league does escape, but All for One is apprehended.
Yeah.
Now Shigaraki is alone in that matter because his master and his bank pretty much are captured.
Yeah.
But this comes once again at a giant cost, where All Might is no longer the symbol of peace. He no longer has one for all. And he says the iconic line that Deku and the whole world sees on the prompters and TVs, "You're next."
Right. And the world takes it as like any villains out there, like, you're next. Like, I can take you down too.
But Deku knows.
It's his time now. He is now. It's his turn.
The chainsaw.
The chainsaw's in the background. Really,
We apologize. But hey, we can't stop Chainsaw Man from doing its thing.
Yeah, it's like, talk about me.
Maybe we will.
Anyway,
so at this point in time, this is where the fall of hero society begins.
The little trickles.
The little trickles. So All Might was the symbol of peace and pretty much holding it down on its own.
Right. And
you start to see the flaws in that because once he's gone now, like, the power grab is there for who takes over next. And Endeavor becomes the number one hero at the moment in time, and that's a huge thing that we'll get into at a later time. And just fight. There's a bunch of things that go on, and Deku now feels the pressures of being the successor because he's next in line to fight All for One and Shigaraki if necessary.
Yeah, like, I mean, when the broadcast goes out, like, as everyone's cheering, you see him like crying and sobbing and breaking down, and someone notices.
Someone who we've been talking about this whole time.
Our boy
Bakugou and Deku. So we now come to this point where Bakugou is frustrated.
Yeah.
And is angry with Deku. And obviously that's been a staple this whole entire time. You know what I mean? But it's more accentuated to the point where he challenges Deku when they're not supposed to fight outside of the school. They're not supposed to leave the campus. They're fighting in the streets. They're for the streets.
Well, they're in one of the training ground, like the testing zones.
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
They're
for the streets.
Yeah.
And they get into this big brawl, and you kind of get to see now, since the first fight, the progression. Like, Bakugou wants to believe that he's still better than Deku, but he can't not acknowledge the jump in power that Deku has achieved in this small amount of time. And he's now that he knows that, Deku's power is not his own in the sense that he wasn't born with it, but he won't respect Deku with this quirk until Deku makes it his own. So you have like this humongous fight where Deku's doing full cowling, Baku's going his explosions. You see Deku do this like crazy like B360 spin in the air, and this crazy kick.
It's a very well animated fight.
Yeah, and it's a crazy fight, and like Bakugou's arms gets injured, Deku gets thrown into railings.
Yeah.
This humongous fight thing. And you see that Bakugou pretty much really reveals his true feelings about this. So the reason why he's so frustrated about everything so far is because he allowed himself to get captured. Deku tried to save him. So his superiority complex is in place because Deku is trying to save him, even though he's broken. He can't be saved.
Yeah.
Bakugou can't save himself, and the fact that he got captured was the catalyst for the ending of the All Might's career being ended.
Yeah, so he blames himself.
He blames himself for what happened to All Might. And All Might is not only Deku's idol, but Bakugou's as well.
Yeah.
So imagine that. You're like, think about a celebrity or a person in your life, a family member, anyone who you admire and is like someone very special to you. And imagine that you ended their career. Like, how does that feel?
Yeah.
So he's very frustrated, and you get all this like built up frustration out, and they end up getting up in the air, and Bakugo shoots this humongous blast down, pins Deku, and beats Deku. Right. So Bakugo wins this fight, and number one, that's like kind of a win to his ego, but almost like a death to his ego.
Yeah.
And now we're getting into this phase where they now instead of being enemies, have now fully established themselves into this rival territory.
Yeah.
A healthier rival territory.
Right.
And we'll start to see how that progresses and moves forward in the next part.
Yeah, right. Like we are only 1/3 of the way for the story.
we had this like fat list of like all the things that we're gonna do, and it's super long. So we realized like we can't bang it out. We don't want to force you guys to listen to that.
Encyclopedia of My Hero events.
Like, we want to take it in parts, give everyone a chance to go through, and also maybe this stuff to a T, and then you want to maybe brush up more on another part of it, and now you have that option when the next part comes out. And we really appreciate this guy. I had fun doing this.
I mean, it's very interesting because when did My Hero start? Like,
I mean, it started shortly after Naruto ended,
like
which was like 2015, 2016. Yeah.
And, watching a series kind of evolve over time, and like we're going back all the way to the beginning and stuff, and you're like, you kind of remember like, oh yeah, like
going through this, I'm like remembering things about it like, as we're talking about it. It's nice to like reminisce it because we're so far from where we're finishing off this episode, like in terms of like the manga content and like even the anime, and there's so much more to be discussed, but it's nice to take a look back at the beginnings of everything and really getting a perspective.
Yeah. And I mean, like, we covered, I guess, if we are anime only, we like covered, I guess, all the way to season 3. That's what we basically talked about this episode.
Yes, and we'll continue on from that in the next one.
Yeah. I just want to say, speaking of the anime, what a good soundtrack that stuff is. Oh, man.
Oh, I know. I mean, the voice actors, the art, the animation, everything from Studio Bones is pretty top notch, for the most part.
Yeah.
And you have to respect the grind that they put and the love they put into this series, and the love that the fans and we have for this series, because we do. I mean, I love this series.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely.
It pisses me off sometimes, but for sure. But I do love this series, and I love what Deku and what the world stands for.
I mean, I think we'll get to this more when we released our last episode of this, when we kind of like talk about My Hero as a whole and what we think.
Sure.
But like, I get, it's a shonen, like, all right, sure. But like, for it being a shonen, it does things very well.
Yeah.
Like, even the tropey stuff.
Yeah, it handles cliches and makes it original to some extent. Like, you know what I mean? You don't expect it to go the way you think it does a lot. Like, because a lot of people have fan theories. Sometimes they pan out, but sometimes they're handled differently than what you think.
Yep.
And other times they're just completely out of left field. So it does give you a lot of moments to be like, whoa, like jaw dropping.
Yeah. Some characters are not handled as well as they should be. Some characters are handled really well.
Every story is flawed.
Yeah.
But
you know what? For what it is, and especially so far we've talked about, like, it certainly has lived up to the hype.
Oh, 100%. I agree. So yeah, that is our first part 1 analysis of the story so far, My Hero Academia. We hope you guys enjoyed. If you want to see more of this content, please leave a like, make a comment, subscribe to our channel. It helps us a lot.
Yep.
We also have audio-only episodes, like 30-plus episodes of audio-only content. You can find on Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, Google, wherever you fancy. We just recently dropped a first episode of a Let's Play for Dark Souls. So if part 1, I'm playing it, Michael's being my coach, and I'm torturing myself for your entertainment. So please, take a listen, watch a video, leave a like, all that stuff really helps us out. We have a Twitter, Instagram, and new TikTok that will be active soon, even though we keep saying that. It will have clips upcoming shortly, so if you want to stay in contact with us and, be part of our little community, like those pages and subscribe to those pages as well. This has been great. Thank you guys so much. I'm Jake.
And I'm Michael.
Peace.
United
States of
Smash!